In this video, we're going to be building an app with Devin, which is an AI agent by this company called Cognition. And the cool thing is we will be building this entire app from Slack. So Slack is a communications tool, and we will be just inside of Slack, and I'll be typing in the commands there, kind of like talking to a human a little bit, and the AI agent will just then build out the app in the background. So as always on this channel, we won't be writing any manual code. We will have AI handle all of the coding for us. And you'll see this whole experience of being inside of Slack and building your app from there is pretty interesting. So stick around to see what it's like. If you're new here, my name is Moritz. I have a product management background, so I don't really know how to code. But because of AI, I can now just vibe code and do that full time. So some quick background around Devin. You might have heard of them. I think it was over a year ago they launched, and back then it was like a huge story because they were one of the first companies that said they're going to build an AI agent for coding, and people were really excited about it. I remember there was this video back then going around about the founder, Scott Wu, who is some kind of math genius, and there's this video as a kid where he's like solving these crazy math problems. So people were very excited about this product back then. And since that big launch, it got a bit quieter around Devin, and then Cursor got really popular, and then all of these other vibe coding tools came onto the scene like Bolt, Lovable, and so on, Windsurf. And yeah, you haven't heard too much about Devin. So I just wanted to go and see what they've been up to and explore this tool and see how good it actually is 1 year later. The other thing is also that when they launched, they had this like 500 per month price plan. So people were like, wow, that's way too much. But they have actually recently released a new plan, which allows you to just pay as you go. So I think it starts at $20 and then you can just top up your account. So this makes it way more accessible for people that just want to try out this tool. Okay, but without further ado, let's jump into the build. So my idea for this build today is something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is a Reddit growth tool. So the reason why I've been thinking about this is because search on ChatGPT is becoming a huge topic, like SEO on ChatGPT, basically. How do your products get found in this new world of AI? And Reddit turns out to be a good way to get into recommendations by all of these LLMs. So I've been thinking about whether I should be improving my Reddit strategy. So that basically means just posting about my product on Reddit to grow my product. But it takes a lot of time to do that. And one of the ideas that I was thinking about is it could be a tool that helps you make this whole process a bit easier of posting, replying to Reddit posts, and then like casually inserting a link to your product. The first thing I did, I just used Copycoder here to get a design of the different pages that this tool could have. And I set up a GitHub repo with a basic Next.js skeleton with these pages inside of them. They don't really do anything yet. They're just front-end pages. And that was my basis to get started with Devin. Now, I could have probably also just used the prompts and have Devin build it out completely from scratch. But I actually built this skeleton before, so I thought I'll just use it for the purpose of playing around with Devin. Because Devin really is a tool that is very useful if you have an existing code base. It's not so much tailored for building something completely from scratch. And that's why it's actually quite nice that we have this existing repo that we can build on top of. The next thing you want to do after you log into Devin and create an account is it's going to prompt you to set up an instance of your repo, basically. So if you're here in settings under Devin's machine and you basically go through this like setup step to connect your GitHub and to just clone your repo into this virtual instance. So what this does is you can see here actually, after I have this local instance, I can go here into code and actually see the code inside of a virtual instance of VS Code here. So you can see this is like an IDE inside of your browser, looks exactly like VS Code. And it also has a virtual instance of a browser. So Devin actually has its own browser that it can control, and that makes it much more powerful. So let me show you here on this browser. If I open up localhost 3000 here, I can actually see this Reddit product that I've been building. And Devin has access to that too and can actually basically write the code and test and see inside of this browser and give you back screenshots also of that. So this was one part of the setup. And the other part is obviously to integrate Slack. Just go to your integrations here and you just click on Slack and then you log into your Slack. And once you did that, you can then find Devin as a bot inside of your Slack channel. And you can talk to Devin directly here. So I did that a little bit just to explore which repos can you work on. It will know which of the repos are connected. And what I did was I created another channel here called Reddit app. And that's then where I had all of the conversations with Devin. Okay, so let's check out what I actually did. So the first thing I did was said run Reddit app 3 and give me screenshots for each page of the app. As you can see, it's really easy to just tag Devin like you would like tag a human. You just tag Devin and say what you want. And I started off with saying, yeah, give me a screenshot because I plan on just using Slack from here on and just communicating with Devin inside of Slack. And so the first thing I want to do is just get some screenshots of each page of the app to see what it looks like. And Devin then starts running and it immediately responds with what its plan is. I'll run the Reddit app and capture screenshots of all pages. And it says, okay, 6 pages to screenshot. This was in the beginning, I still had 6 pages and we'll navigate through each route and capture full screenshots. Okay, so it does this like planning, which I guess gives it better results because it always has a plan that it will outline to you. And you'll see later that it sometimes also changes its own plan when it realizes that it cannot do the plan. It also always gives this confidence score. So in this case, the confidence score is high. If it's a very difficult task, it might say low and then goes off and does the task. And you can see here, then after a while, it came back. You get this like Slack notification. It comes back with, in this case, the screenshots. And then I can open up the screenshots here. And this is how the app looked like in the beginning. So I could go through the screenshots and just see what my app looks like. Okay, and then the next thing I wanted to do was just to do a bit of cleanup and to just focus on the main functionalities. So I said delete these 3 pages because I don't really need them right now. I'll just focus on like one of the pages. And I did that quite easily. Task completed. That was to be expected to just delete some pages, no problem at all. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do is to implement some like smaller UI changes that are not that difficult. So I just wanted to test slowly increasing the difficulty level and seeing how Devin could handle that. So what I did in this thread is I said first rename the page to my product. So also like a pretty simple task. And then on that page, I wanted to move some things in the layout around a bit and add a button here and there. And I wanted to see how good it is actually at designing UI. Okay, again, a pretty easy task. So I really expected it to do a good job. And you can see here, this is the screenshot of how it looked like after it made those changes. And my plan with this page is just a simple page that lets you enter your product URL. You can click analyze, and then it will send this off somehow to an API to get your product details. So I would implement that functionality later and just focus on the UI for now. Then as a user, you can modify this input form however you want. And then there should be like some button, which is missing right now, to then get some subreddits recommended to you. So these should then be subreddits where I can post about my product that would be suitable and have a target audience that might be interested in my product. And what I did next was quite interesting. I copied that screenshot and opened it in this other tool where I can annotate screenshots. And I just added some things that I wanted to change. So I said here, add a field for target audience, and then remove this part, just put a box around it. And then I said, instead of this part, there needs to be a button to trigger the subreddit search here. Okay, and I sent this annotated screenshot then back to Devin and told it to make these changes. And this worked really well. I was actually surprised how well that worked and how nice this experience felt to just get a screenshot and then annotate it, because that's exactly how I would communicate to some developer that is on my team. I would tell him, give me some screenshots of this, or maybe even a test link or something, but like some easy way for me to have a look at the application. And then I would want to just pass some information back and tell that person what changes should be made. And this feels like I did exactly that. I just passed that information to Devin, and Devin then went ahead and made these changes. And you can see the changes it made here. So it did actually remove this part, and then it put the button here square in the middle. So you can see I think one of the weaknesses of Devin is that it's not that good at UI design. At least the way it handled this prompt here, it didn't do such a good job with the button here. Yeah, and then I actually did the exact same thing again. I took that screenshot and just added some more instructions and said, hey, I don't want this gap here, and this button should actually be further on the right. And it did that as well. So I was iterating around with it a bit on the UI here. And as you can see, every time it's done, it creates this PR. So for those that don't know, so it's called a pull request on GitHub, and it's basically a separate branch where Devin does its changes on. And once you approve these changes, you can merge these back into the main branch. And that means that you can actually put these features live if you wanted to. And this mimics exactly how you would work inside of a development environment with other developers, which is you have this like branch, and then other developers, when they want to change something, they create separate branches and then open up a pull request that is then to be merged into a main branch. So it did sometimes make some small weird errors, or like a rookie error here, which then I had to tell it, and it then went ahead and fixed that. What I really liked in this PR was that it actually pointed out like a path mismatch, because I had changed the path and I forgot about that, but it pointed out to me, and then I was like, oh, okay, thanks for pointing that out, and please fix that and update the PR. And once I had the UI layout of that page ready, I want to move on to the next step and see if it can do the more complicated task of actually integrating the OpenAI API to analyze a product URL. So I wanted to implement now that if you enter any URL here and click on the analyze button, that this actually goes and fetches that information and puts it in here. And so the first thing I said was research if we would integrate the OpenAI API for the analyze product URL function. Would that work? Does it do web search via API? So I've never actually tried this out before, so I just wanted to ask it before. And it came back and said, yes, I've researched it and it does work. And I said, okay, let's implement it. And it went ahead and implemented that. You can see here on this implementation, it actually put confidence low because it's a more complicated task. And it also says, yeah, I need to explore the existing API. So I was really curious to see if it would actually get that done. I then also anticipated while it was working, I said, let me know when to give you the OpenAI API key, because I knew that it would need that at some point to actually make it work. So I just pasted the API key here in the chat, deleted it again afterwards, but it took the API key and inserted it into the code. Yeah, it said, perfect. I'll update the end local file with your OpenAI API key. Okay, and then it came back with an implementation. It gave me the screenshot of how it inserted GitHub in the virtual browser, and it did fill out this product information with GitHub stuff, right? So it seemed like it was working. And for me, there are now actually two ways how I can actually test it and verify how that's working. And so one of the ways is I can open up the Devin chat here. And these are basically the chat conversations which get created here in the background. So everything that I say in Slack also gets created here, and like it's all in sync. So I could also be using this to chat to Devin, but I just choose to use Slack. And here's also where you can access the code in the browser. It will be updated on the latest PR that it had just created. And the way to test that out is to type in the URL and click analyze. And so what I got there was this error message. So it didn't quite work on the first try yet. Another way to test it out, obviously, is also you could also open up your IDE locally and just switch into that branch of the PR and open up this session locally and test it out there. So I then went back and just said, I typed in another URL and it gave me an error message, and Devin went off and investigated this. And after a few minutes created a new PR and said it had fixed the error. But the thing that it actually did was it didn't actually fix the error. It just added a better error handling fix. It kind of misunderstood, I guess, my prompt here, and it didn't really do what I wanted it to do. So I tried again and said, this PR is only an error handling fix. I want you to fix the actual issue. And here I think it did something quite interesting. So it realized that it might be doing a more complicated method by using the OpenAI API and using like the web search tool within the OpenAI API. So instead, it just by itself decided to update the plan and said, I'll implement a web content fetch. So it's basically what it's doing now is it's using this like other API just to fetch the content on the website. And then it's sending that content into the OpenAI API to clean it up and uses the cleaned up version to fill out the product details field, which I thought was quite smart of it to do here, to go for the simpler approach. And so I think it did a really good job. The cool thing is also, while it's working, I can just ask it some questions. So I was asking it about this fetch API and trying to understand like what it actually is. And yeah, and when it was done, it returned these 3 screenshots of it testing different URLs. So in this case, Stripe. And it worked, and then tested some like non-existent URL, and that obviously should be giving an error message. And when I tested this out locally, it also worked. So it took 2 or 3 iterations to implement this a bit more complex part of the OpenAI integration, but it did actually make it work. And this is, I think, comparable to if you would do that in Cursor. Like if you tell the agent to do an integration in Cursor, it is like a 50-50 chance, I would say, of it working on the first try. I've definitely encountered several times where it just didn't work, and then you had to keep prompting it several times until the integration actually works. Okay, next, I wanted to give it an even harder task. So the next part of this page was, once you have the product information, you want to click on this page here to get the recommended subreddits. So what I want this button here to do is it takes the product information, sends it somehow to the Reddit API or whatever other API, and gets like suitable recommended subreddits that are fitting to my product and that I can use to promote my product in. So I said here, let's work on the find recommended subreddit integration. I want you to first do some research which API we can use to get the desired data. So it did the research, and it came back here with the key findings of saying that there's an official Reddit API. It is limited for recommendations. There's no dedicated endpoints. Okay. Also said there's a gummy search, but they don't have an API. And then like a third option is also just to do web scraping, which in my opinion is not so good. And then it says recommendation is a hybrid Reddit API and custom algorithm approach, which basically means using the Reddit API and then building a custom algorithm for recommendations, which makes sense to me. And I just went then also into the Reddit API to have a look at what endpoints they actually have. And I found this endpoint here, which is the get subreddit search endpoint, which seems to just return subreddits based on certain keywords. And so I told Devin, how about we use that endpoint? And it said that we will be using this endpoint. And it created a little plan here. So it said, set up Reddit OAuth for API authentication, build keyword extraction from product URL description, implement the search logic to fetch and rank subreddits, and then update UI components to display dynamic recommendations. To me, that sounded like it's quite a lot to do. So what I said, yes, that sounds good, but just do step 1 for now and implement like a test for us to see if the Reddit API connection is working. And then I went to create the Reddit app and basically get like API keys and just passed my API keys here, which I won't be showing now. And yeah, it went off, did a really good job here. And I was like really surprised here that it just worked right away. So it created this page here. When I analyze this part works, and then it add this button to test the Reddit API. It says connection successful. And then I can, after this information has been filled out, I can then just click on find recommended subreddits. And it actually gives me subreddits that are like pretty good. We can probably improve this algorithm to get some better recommendations of subreddits, but you can see from the subreddits that they do match like the keywords of the product quite well. But let's try with something else. Let's try microphone to an audio device, target audience. And here we can just say microphone, a cheap but good microphone for YouTubers. Okay, let's use these new keywords and see what subreddits it finds. Yeah, studio microphone, audio engineering, the actual toner subreddit. So pretty good. And yeah, I was like, as I said, really surprised that Devin actually just one-shotted this and got this API integration right in the first try. What's also cool is that if I click here into one of the PRs and go through the PR, I can actually talk to Devin here as well. So I can say, summarize this PR for me into sentences. And then it does this like eyes emoji to tell you that it saw this comment. And then it responds with this PR resolves merge conflicts by creating a hybrid system. Okay, so what's the conclusion here? Let's do a quick summary. So the first thing that I would say that I really liked was the way the interaction in Slack works, because as I said, it feels like talking to an actual coworker. And you just tag the coworker here. You give it some information on what you want to have done. It will return screenshots. You can give it screenshots, and it feels like a very intelligent coworker that gives you a plan, that can iterate on plans. It does not have like senior developer coding expertise yet. So it is definitely like a junior developer that will handle not like super complex tasks. But as you saw with the last task, which was the integration of the Reddit API, that's not a super simple task. And it did one-shot it and implemented it without any errors. So that was great. I was completely detached from the code, actually. I don't really need to see the code anymore. I can just give instructions that are then implemented in the background versus something like a cursor, which is an IDE, you're still very close to the code. And here in Slack, you're much further away from the code. So to me, this feels on the spectrum much more further into this agentic spectrum. And I know that Cursor recently also released a Slack feature. I've actually tested both of them, and I would say they're probably both on par right now. The other thing you have to know about Devin is that it's really made more for this use case of working with an existing large code base. So it seems to have a good understanding of large code bases, and you can then bring Devin into your existing code base to work on it. So this product is much more, so you can also see here on the website, it's like more targeted towards enterprise customers. And as like a solo indie developer, maybe that's not the best choice. Like probably you should still go with Cursor, Windsurf, or if you're a total vibe coder, go with Bold or Lovable. But this can be a really good choice for enterprise customers. And I think this is exactly the target audience that they're going after. And I think as the agent and as the underlying models get more and more powerful, this whole use case of the autonomous software engineer in the background will get more and more valuable. So one of the things I did notice though is that it can get quite costly. So I put around $40 into this, and you get these, they're called ACUs. And I've pretty much used up all of my ACUs just from building the features on this page, and it's not even finished yet. And so if you want to build a complete app from start to finish, then you will probably have to spend at least $100 or $200. One of the things I noticed is that, and that's the same thing with Devin and other AI agents, that if you can manage to break down the tasks to be very small, then there's just a much higher likelihood of it working. And if my first prompt had been like, implement this entire app for me and make everything work, then for sure it would have not worked. And so you will still at this point have to break down the task into small subtasks to get something usable out of these AI agents. But as I said, I think like the models are getting more and more powerful every day. And so this is a temporary problem that we have right now. In the future, I can definitely see this scenario where you can like give it much larger task and say implement everything on this page, like all of the integrations, make sure it's safe to a backend and like it's super secure and all of that, do all the testing, and it will go ahead and do that. So definitely very exciting future ahead of us. I'm really looking forward to that. As someone who doesn't actually code, but really likes building applications, this is something that will just be awesome to have. Cool. And finally, thank you Cognition for sponsoring this video. So I was in touch with the team and I actually really wanted to test out their tool because I hadn't done so yet. And so they offered to sponsor this video, and have me give an honest take on their tool. If you want to try it out yourself, I'll put a link below. And yeah, if you want to see more content like this, where I just dive into tools and break them down, try to use them, give my honest take on them, then it would really help me out if you subscribe and leave a like on this video. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next video.